Welcome back to another episode of Everything Aviation Podcast. On this episode, it's a fantastic one for you today. We have an awesome person who had won the Steve Thorne, or better known to you guys who follow aviation as Flight Chops' competition, which just aired a couple of weeks ago, where he's flying the extra. This person has also had done a massive adventure and is now a full-time flight instructor. It's Hannah Neal. Hannah, how are we?
Hi, great. How are you?
Not bad at all now. Not bad. I wish I could fly, but because of the pandemic, we're on lockdown and we can't. So I'm very jealous of yourself getting ready to go flying.
No kidding. Wait, even GA for you.
Even GA, we can't do unnecessary journeys. We can't travel to the airfield.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to hear that. I didn't know that. Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's
That's
oh well.
ridiculous.
It's been my
Oh,
last flight. I think I did as P1 was the 12th of December,
of
2020.
2020. Oh my gosh, that's so long ago.
But we're
Like
on
the
the
grand
up.
scheme of
We've
flying.
been given the green light from the 12th of April, so I think the whole
Oh,
country's buzzing
God.
now. So
Well, I hope you all remember how to fly by then. It's not just like every pilot that hasn't flown in months going up at the same time. That sounds a bit
it's a
con-
scary thought. Personally, I want to go with an instructor first just to be checked out. But yeah,
even those instructors haven't been flying, so
that's a fair point, actually.
my gosh.
So Hannah,
Hopefully,
I'm
yeah,
gonna take it back to the start. I don't usually start with the massive stuff here, but I think this is where your journey kind of began. Was with you applying for Flight Chops' competition. Can you tell us about that?
yeah, that was very early on in my flying career. I had actually been a student pilot when I had applied for that. So I don't even think I just soloed an airplane for the first time. I was very early on. I was very naive in aviation, so hadn't even gotten my private pilot certificate yet. Just a student pilot, waiting on my check ride, and I saw this come up on Instagram. I was like, oh, you could do this thing in Canada, and I just started following Steve. So I could learn more about aviation, and I found his YouTube channel, and I was very new to all this. I had no idea what warbirds were. I didn't know what aerobatics were. I had no idea what the plane was. Didn't know what an extra 300 was. No idea. But I applied thinking, oh, yeah, this could be cool. And I didn't really think much of it. But then a few months later, I think I applied in January or so. And then they let me know a few months prior to that, or after that, that I had won and that they were going to fly me all expense paid out to Canada to
Wow.
hang out and with Flight Chops and the whole crew and then be on this episode. And I couldn't believe it. And that experience honestly did change my flying trajectory. Like, it seems kind of dramatic to say that, but as someone so impressionable as I was when I went to this experience and when I had this flight, I think it was so good that I was in that stage of the impressionable and young pilot. I don't know. I'm still pretty young. I'm 23, but the young and impressionable pilot that is like, yeah, I'm down for anything. So it really changed my trajectory for flying.
It was fantastic to watch as well, especially now because we've looked on. I'm sure we're going to talk about it, but you've also gone on to do aerobatics. You've got an aerobatic rating, and you've got a few trophies under your belt for aerobatic competitions. Did that kind of stem from, because for people who haven't actually seen the video, Steve Thorne or Flight Chops brought Hannah out, as you said, to Canada, and the one thing, there was kind of three stories going on. Was your own story, Hannah. There was a friend of Steve's who wanted to solo the extra 300, and there was Steve himself who wanted to fly a competition box. So his whole thing was, it was effectively based around aerobatics. And did you have any idea what you were getting into at that point? Like you said, you never knew what an extra 300 was.
No, I had no idea. I had no idea. The feeling of being in that plane, I had never experienced in my life before, because all I knew was I'd really only flown, I started in a 172, and then I did the rest of my training in a Piper Archer, very tame, benign, straight and level aircraft. And I just did some pattern, and maybe I'd go do a cross country, and then maybe a little stall, and that's all I knew. And so I had no idea. It completely blew my mind. I didn't know planes could do that at that point. Like I wasn't very well versed in aviation. It was hard for me to be there in those beginning stages. To like, it was a good thing and a bad thing, because when I was there, I was kind of this deer in the headlights is the way I describe it, where I had no clue what they were talking about, because I was so new. And I would sit there and I would listen to them discuss everything they were going to do and do the briefings, and then just kind of airport banter. And I just remember kind of feeling a little bit like nervous because I didn't really know what they were talking about. Basically, I do remember feeling a little bit kind of like left out at some points. They did a good job of including me, but you can't, when you're new to something and you're around all these people that know everything about it, it can be really hard. So I just remember sitting there kind of like, I have no idea. But then I watched the video, I watched the episodes back, and I understand it all now. I'm like, whoa, it's weird to have that kind of reflection where I know exactly what they're talking about now, no matter what. But I was very naive.
Because it was great to see kind of the different experience as well spread out. And what I loved about it was the instructor, the aerobatics instructor as well, was just so calm, and he took everything in his stride. And the one thing that really amazed me with your flight was as well is that I don't know if this was planned or not, but you guys ended up doing like a photo shoot formation flight.
Yes, that was planned. I didn't know that. I didn't know anything that was going on, so I can't say that I knew. But yeah, that was for the people that sponsored me to send me out to Canada. So that was for Travel Manitoba. We got some really cool photos over the city of us flying, and that they kind of booted a lot of the money to send me out because there was the hotel. They paid for my airline tickets. They paid for all my meals. Like, I didn't pay for a single thing, which was incredible. But yeah, Luke, as you're talking about the aerobatics instructor, he actually became one of my closest friends. So I think I talk to him every few days or so. And we've talked a lot about, he's been my greatest mentor for aerobatics. So he's really helped me a lot with kind of this new journey that I've been on, and just the rest of my flying as well. So Luke is a great guy, and he's really helped me out with my flying career.
It's brilliant. He seems like he can, because even watching from the three stories there, he gets out from flying with Steve and doing all the aerobatics competition stuff, and then he goes and sends someone solo, and then he puts you in first time aerobatic person, and then he's back to sending Steve again. And it's really, really good the way he adapts to it. But it's really good as well for you guys the way you guys adapted to it as well, because nothing seemed to fluster him.
Yeah, no, he's been doing this a long time, and he's very experienced. He can kind of just take anything that you throw at him. If you're learning aerobatics and you put him into some kind of crazy maneuver, he just understands it all. He's a very good feel for the airplane, and he's a lot of experience to back that up.
Brilliant. How did you find the extra 300 compared to your 172? Because look, I've flown an extra 200, and you can fly it with the two fingers like that, and just a little tiniest twitch sends it going.
Well, the funniest part, I think the part of that video that would do that question justice is when there's this one part where he lets me take the stick, and I go, wow, this thing really climbs. Like, I moved it a little bit, and I go, oh my gosh, this thing really climbs. And we were hardly climbing, you know, but compared to what I'm used to, it was huge. It was this crazy rocket ship, but I moved it a little bit, and I went, whoa, this really climbs. And then he goes, oh, pull it harder. And so then I yank it, and we go vertical. And I think like my face in the video just sums it all up. But very different than what I'm used to.
It's brilliant.
Used to.
So after all that, Hannah, where was your next kind of port of call when you were done filming with Stephen and having the fun and the extra? What was your next port of call, or did you have any goals at that stage you wanted to reach?
Absolutely. I think it rearranged my goals a little bit, actually, the experience, because I went in I started flight training because I wanted to be an airline pilot. That's the reason that I did become a pilot, is because I wanted that for my career. And I went in and I kind of realized that after that experience, I kind of thought that I might want to go a different direction and work in a field that would provide more hands-on flying, because of how much I learned that I loved the actual physical flying of the airplane. I sometimes worry that I still, I'm open to airlines, but I sometimes worry that if I did go to an airline, that I would just be doing a lot of sitting and monitoring and pushing. And I don't think that that's the part of flying that I love. But then I also think that that could fund my aerobatic goals, at the same time. So I had never considered aerobatics or tailwheel before I went to Canada. And I was dead set on being an airline pilot. And I came out of it going, I have to get my tailwheel and I have to start aerobatics. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it. And so I went and got my tailwheel, I think, like within the next few weeks. after I got back.
Wow, that's quite good going.
I was so hyped up. I was very, well, I still get very excited about obviously anything new in aviation, but I was very gung ho. I'm like, let's go do this tail wheel aerobatics. I did everything I could to figure out a way to get myself into aerobatics, and it was difficult because it's not a thing that a lot of people do.
No.
So it's hard to find.
And did you find it quite that you needed to build more hours before you managed to get into aerobatics, or did you just go straight into it after the tailwheel endorsement?
Man, I needed more hours to fill the insurance requirements for the plane that I joined the club in. They wanted 100 PIC at that point. I think I'd been flying because it was 2019 2019 that I went out to Canada, and that was kind of in the spring. And then a few months after that, in the summers, when I did my first competition, and I had a safety pilot because I wasn't insured in the airplane, and I didn't have enough experience to even land in a crosswind at that point, even with my tail wheel endorsement. So I definitely needed to honestly, like, one of the hardest parts was just getting more comfortable in the plane itself.
Mm.
So, because there's flying the figures and there's flying the aerobatics, but you have to land the plane after. You have to land the plane. And so tailwheel was very new to me. And we get a lot of wind. So Oregon's very windy in some parts. We get like Corvallis, where the competition was, and a lot of other places too. We get a lot of wind out here. Corvallis especially, though, we would have crosswinds of up to like 15, but a gust factor of 30. And that's
Wow.
normal. And so me being a brand new tailwheel pilot, that was the hardest part, was in a tail wheel handling that. And we did have a crosswind runway, but it closed down. And so for me, it was like, well, I have to learn how to actually fly the plane before I can even, like, because I have to get it up there and I have to get it back down, and then I have to do everything up there. And so that was definitely difficult, was with the wind that we have here.
It seems quite a demanding, task-focused environment to be in, flying aerobatic championships. Like you said, you've got to think about what you're doing next. With aerobatic-wise, you've got to get the plane off the ground in the first instance, but then you've got to get it back on the ground ultimately. So it just seems like everything is kind of against you, but you still went and pulled it off, because I believe you got a first place in that, didn't you?
I got first place this previous one. So the first one that I did was right after the competition. And that's a really heartwarming story to talk about, was the first one that I did, the first ever aerobatic competition, because I came out of the flight shops experience, so energized on finding, my place in the aerobatic world and starting this new journey. But I felt kind of alone because I didn't know anybody that did it. And so Luke recommended that I go to a competition and that I just hang around people and that I just volunteer, so I can get an idea of what it looks like, meet people, maybe get connections, because you need a plane, of course, to fly aerobatics. And as soon as I was there, Jim Burke, who's an unlimited US pilot, and he's also an airshow pilot, within a few seconds, he said, why don't you compete? And so the only aerobatics I'd done was just riding along with Luke. I didn't really know anything about it, but everybody at that competition really banded together to help me out. And that was one of the finest examples of the community in aviation that I've ever seen. There was someone that waived my registration fee. There was, everybody took me up in their planes. Everybody would sit with me and walk it through. Everybody would coach me. People would be my safety pilot because I couldn't yet fly the decathlon. Obviously in aerobatics, I was not going to go out there by myself. So I was not going to do that when I had never flown aerobatics before. And I'd never even been in a spin until
Wow.
It was 3 days before the competition. And so everyone really banded together. People would take me up in their planes. So I flew, I think, 4 different planes, just everybody going through all the figures with me and helping me out. And I'm really thankful for everybody that did that, because it's exhausting. Like, aerobatics is a really tiring thing. And these were pilots that were in the upper levels. So these are advanced pilots that are doing these long, hard, complicated sequences, but they could be sleeping, or they could be hydrating, they could be resting or practicing on their own, yet they took me up to help me. Like, they took their energy, their time. And that's just like, I can never express how grateful I was for that.
It's amazing, and it's one of the things I love about aviation as well. And it's really hard to describe to people outside of it. It is a massive family. No matter what you fly, it could be a paramotor, it could be jets, it could be microlights, it can be anything, and everyone will band together, like you said, to help each other out. And that's what I love about the community spirit of it. It is a community.
Absolutely.
And did you have any ideas then that after you were going to compete before you got there, or did they just say, no, let's go and compete, you're going on, and then
No idea. I had no idea. I thought, well, I'd been in contact with, I kind of knew a few people there. Kind of the trajectory was my friend Mike. He introduced me to this guy, Matt, who had a PITS, and I actually just flew with him the other day again. But I texted Matt and I was like, hey, I don't really know anything. I want to get into aerobatics. I heard you compete, and Mike, sent me to you. And then he took me up, and then he said, oh, you should come to the contest. And so I already knew Matt, which was really helpful because we'd flown together a few times. And so Matt invited me to the contest, but then I didn't know that I was going to compete because everybody was just saying, oh yeah, like, you'll just volunteer, and that's the best way to get into it. And that's what I recommend for anybody else too. Not saying you'll have the same results, but you'll go out and compete. But I had also, again, when I was saying I needed 100 PAC hours for the decathlon, there was an aerobatics group at Corvallis that had a decathlon that you paid into the membership with. You could rent it. And so
Brilliant.
I couldn't get insured on that until I had 100 PAC at that time, which seems like so little now. I remember looking at that going, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to get that? And so I flew across country every day solo leading up to after the competition in order to get that time. I did 2.5 hours a day of PIC just to get that. And
That's
so
amazing.
I wanted it.
Well, it shows that hard work and perseverance pays off. Just going back to the competition, what was that feeling like when they announced you as first place in your very first competition, having never flown aerobatics before?
That was second place. So I got second
Sorry.
place in the first one, and then I got first place last year in my second competition. So
Wow.
yeah, second place in the first place in the second. And so when I got second, I was very shocked, and I felt really bad because I beat people that had been like working harder than me, and I felt really bad about that. But it's kind of like a testament to just, if you are really putting your head in the game of what you can accomplish, if you're really focused about it. And I never thought for one second I couldn't do it. And I kind of just carried that mentality. And I think that's how I was able to pull it off. But everyone was kind of just very like, who are you? When I when I came up there to get the second place, it was, but everyone's very, very supportive. And
Brilliant.
yeah, made lots of friends from that, and still in close contact with everyone. Oh yeah, and not to mention, they also the wife of Jim. So the wife of Jim, that's a weird way. Marianne, she's one of my closest friends now, and they let me stay in their guest room too the whole week because I didn't.
Oh wow.
So and then they got me breakfast, like another form of generosity. They just let me stay in their house.
That's fantastic. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, lots of generosity that week that I experienced. And I just didn't know how to thank everybody.
Again, it just shows what the community in aviation is like, especially you said you're brand new and all of a sudden there's all these people pulling out all the stops for you. I'm just going to touch on an aircraft that I think you've also got P1 hours in that I'm very excited about because I've also booked a flight in myself, is a Harvard.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about that, because that looked really, really cute. I think there's actually a picture of you guys all in formation as well, just in a big line.
Yes, that's Brian Harper's T6. That's the same group. I know T6 and Harvard, Harvard's the Canadian version, I believe, of the T6.
I think it's also the UK version of it as well.
Yes, I think because it's winterized, and someone can fact check me on that. I think that's the main difference, is the winterization of it, because the T6 that Brian has is from South Africa, I'm pretty sure.
All right, okay.
So, yeah, it's a beautiful plane, and he's the nicest guy ever, Brian Harper. He's a hazelnut farmer, and he has this T6, and it's kind of like when it comes into the airport, you're like, who is this? But that was Jim's birthday party. So Jim's the guy that I mentioned before, the unlimited pilot. And that was the same group that was at the That's part of the Aerobatic club down there at Corvallis that I had first met when I got there. And that's what Jim wanted to do for his birthday. We wanted to fly formation. And so I photo shipped that flight. So I got a ride in the T6, which was
Wow.
incredible because Brian is the nicest guy ever. And I just started talking to him when he got there because I didn't really know him, but other people did, obviously. And I was like, hey, wow, I love your plane. It's really cool. And he just goes, thanks. You want to come up in it? And I was like, yeah, yeah, I want to ride. And so that was really special. And I understood at that moment why Steve Thorne Flight Shops, loves the Harvard so much. I didn't understand it until I actually felt it.
I'm very much looking forward to it now, and everyone like yourself I talked to who's had a spin it, my own housemates had a spin in it and said it was phenomenal. And even yourself, listening to the enthusiasm and how happy you were from having a spin in it, I can't wait. We've also got a coffee company over here actually called Warbird Coffee Company and Co. And they have a special T6 coffee, which I managed to get my hands on just to mark the occasion. And it's so cool just to have that coffee bag sat there with just Harvard sat on it in the kitchen on the kitchen counter.
It's a very the way I could describe it, and I think the most amazing thing about that plane is that it's kind of a sensory overload, but in the best way possible. Because I think a lot of planes are sensory overload. Definitely the Pitts is that way for sure. But this one is a very different kind of sensory overload because you can kind of feel as soon as you get into it, you feel like you've stepped back in time, and the smell and the sound of the radial and the power behind the plane and the overall experience, the visual smells, like it's all of your senses are firing at once. And I think that's for me what made it so special. I don't know if anyone else agrees with that, but for me it was just every sense when you're in that plane is firing, and
Brilliant.
that's hard to get with, obviously, like all of your senses are always working at the same time because that's how human bodies work. But with this one especially, I feel like they're all heightened, and that's what I loved about it.
That's amazing. And did you get any stick time with it?
I did. He let me fly it. Yeah, it controls very well. I feel like I can't compare it to anything.
It's in like a class of its own kind of thing. Well, I suppose warbirds are, aren't they? They're all in you can't really compare them to anything that's around nowadays.
Yeah, no, I'd never been in a warbird. That was pretty much my first experience with it.
And have you any plans of getting involved with any warbirds like Steve has done, flying to Harvard or anything like that?
Well, I only have so much time and money, and there's a lot of things in aviation that I really want to get into. And of course, if that experience did come up and I was able to somehow be PIC, like we've got this thing called the Collins Foundation here that is like they've got B-52s, they've got like the Mustangs, I think they have Mustangs. And they give rides and they do like historical tours. And that's actually where I met Mikey, another Mikey that referenced me in the beginning. And so, I mean, obviously, if I was ever capable of being PIC in one of those, that would be like getting a type rating would be insane, but I don't know how to really do that. And so it's not something you can really just kind of go and buy. Well, you can buy it, but I can't buy it. So essentially, I would love to, but I also want to get into float flying and I want to do backcountry and I also want to expand my aerobatic career.
Brilliant.
So
Absolutely brilliant.
I'd love to do it all, but I'm not made of, money. And so I can only do so much.
We looked at it over here actually because you can do rides in Spitfires and all over here, but it's
Oh my gosh.
phenomenal amount of money just for sat in the back. But it'd be well worth it, definitely. But the Harvard that we have a spin booked in, they offer flight tuition as well. But again, it's quite pricey. But like you said, if you had the money, you'd definitely go and do it. I'd be there in a heartbeat.
Yeah, there's just so many avenues in aviation. And I think that's one thing that the flight shops experience really showed me is that there's so many more paths that you can go down in aviation. And that's, I think, what opened my eyes to considering other things that aren't just the airlines, because there's so many different avenues that you can take in aviation.
And one of the avenues you took actually was instructor. How did that come about? Or how did you even think, or when did you start thinking about becoming an instructor?
Yeah, that was kind of always the plan from day one, because of course, they tell you, oh yeah, the fastest path to the airlines, is going to be and the best way to build time is going to be a flight instructor. And then that's kind of I think the natural progression of a lot of, I don't know about how it goes in other countries, but a lot of pilots here who want to get to a career in aviation, like flying something bigger, they do become a flight instructor to build that experience. And a lot of people don't want to do it, but they do it anyways, because, you know, and then you get these flight instructors that are, and I've seen them, I've worked with them, unfortunately, where they don't care about you.
Yeah,
And
I don't like that.
Want to be that. I really did want to try flight instructing. It was, of course, like, I'm not going to say that it wasn't to build hours, because that is part of the reason I did become a flight instructor, because it's a good job to make money, build a lot of experience. Because being a commercial pilot, like, you get your commercial pilot certificate, but then you don't have enough hours to be hired anywhere, you know, because they're not going to hire you as a fresh commercial pilot. It's really hard to get a job, you know, as an actual commercial pilot, and you have to get a lot more experience. And so you do that as flight instructing. That's a really good first job. And I think that it's definitely made me a better pilot. It's taught me a lot about aviation just through my own observations of how other people react and how they learn and how they interpret flying the airplane. It's like, it's very fascinating to watch people learn how to fly. Like, it's been so, and I want to keep doing it. And so wasn't the original plan to be a career flight instructor. I think that I don't want to let it expire, though, at this point. I think I like it more than I thought I would.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes ratings like that, they're easier to maintain than they are to kind of,
Yeah,
as to say, if you let it lapse, it'd be harder to get it back than it would be to just maintain it. And I found
I
that
don't let it last at all.
no, I can see that. What I love about talking to you, Hannah, is that your enthusiasm for it. You're the kind of instructor I'd want sitting beside me now if I was learning to fly again. Because, like you said, I've had the instructors where I didn't click with them, or they didn't want to be there, and it's just not the same environment. And what I love is instructors who have the enthusiasm for it, are able to harness it, and are able to pass it on. And that's what you want, because you come down from a sortie or a flight and you think, yeah, that was quite good. And your instructors, if your instructor's happy with it and showing that they're happy to be there and flying the aircraft, it goes a long way.
Yeah, no, I'm not just sitting around, you know, like, kind of next and unenthusiastic. And I think I was so tired in the beginning because I was putting in 110% of me, and I still do, but I've learned to kind of compartmentalize it, and it's become a lot easier to not get exhausted as you're, you know, flying with multiple students every day. But I do really love encouraging people, because I think my main motivation for why I'm such a passionate instructor and why I'm so obsessed with making sure that my students are happy and that they're achieving their goals and that they're doing their best that they can, is because I was given such a good experience for all of my flight training, because I've been, you know, dealt that hand of positivity, and I've had amazing experiences. I've been supported by everybody that I've worked with. Give or take, I've had a few weird male airport experience. Those are always going to happen. They happen on the weekly, but you learn to kind of I get some weird men in my life at the airport and in my DMs, but overall I've been supported more than I can explain. And just the kindness that I've been shown through aviation, it's made me feel that way towards, I guess, projecting that onto other people, as well as sharing it, embracing other people that are new in aviation, you know, not shutting people out. Because I talk about this in the other podcast that I did with Pilot to Pilot with Justin, but I was actually told that I couldn't be a pilot when I first went to a flight school. And I was actually, yeah, they told me I couldn't do it. And they didn't offer to take me for a flight. They told me that I was too busy, that I couldn't do it. And that I didn't care enough. They're like, well, you clearly don't care, or you're clearly not passionate enough. I'm like, I don't know what a 172 is. Like, I'm sorry that I know nothing. And so I think from all my experiences, both good and bad, I really just care about, you know, that next generation of pilots, the people that are learning. I think it's so important to support them and to be there for them, because I had that. So
100%, and I think we all need kind of a helping hand in life. What I want to know is, though, has that flight school seen you now? Have they any idea that you're an instructor?
Which one?
The one that said you couldn't be a pilot?
Oh no, they're closing down.
Oh, okay, it's self-explanatory, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I remember seeing the lady that told me, and it was a woman that actually told me I couldn't be a pilot.
Oh.
which is crazy. Yeah. It's my first bad experience was with another woman in aviation, which you would think would be the opposite, but because there's not many of us. And so you think support other women that are trying to get into it. I saw her at some sort of, it was some sort of seminar, I think at Albany. I saw her very briefly. I don't think she recognized me. And I know that Ray, who was giving the seminar, he pointed me out and said, oh, well, for Hannah, you know, when she becomes a CFII, so instrument, or like he kind of, and I don't think it was intentional because he doesn't know about how she told me I couldn't do it, but he did point me out as accomplishing these things in the crowd. And so I hope she saw that or noticed it, or I don't know, but she definitely told me I couldn't do it. I almost didn't become a pilot because of her.
That's mad. I don't agree with that at all. Especially when they didn't even bring you flying. They didn't, nothing.
They didn't even offer. It's not like the weather was bad. I remember it being a sunny day, and I remember going in so excited and coming out feeling like I couldn't do it and feeling like I was, you know, just defeated. I had this dream and it was squashed by this person. And I'm very thankful I found my instructor that I ended up working with through all my ratings and certificates. But I just remember feeling so deflated after that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, I don't want anyone to ever feel that way again. And that's why I think I'm the way that I am.
No, definitely not. And I think there's too many people in this world that get kicks out stamping on dreams and putting out people's flames and sparks when there's literally no need for it.
There's no reason. I feel like you should support people definitely getting into this. I think aviation, like we've been talking about, is such an amazing community, and we've seen the way that it works. And I feel like I would not be where I am today without the support of everybody that's been around me. And like I said, give or take, there are a few really weird experiences that I've had, but for the most part, you know, the core people that have really pushed me to achieve these things, they're why I am where I am in such a short amount of time.
It's brilliant to see. And again, like going back to what I said from when the video was released, I didn't realize until I actually looked into it how far you'd come in a year and a half to 2 years. And it's really, really is amazing to see that, especially someone like yourself who's only 23, who's going out grabbing life by the horns and having a blast with it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's like I said, I think earlier, that there's some days I wake up that I'm like, whoa, how did this? And I think I had one of those even yesterday with a student in the plane, you know, who's starting it up and she is not quite sure where everything is. And it's, you know, it takes her a while to start up, which is pretty typical for new students. And I'm sitting there and I'm going like, this is so comfortable for me, but it's so weird because I wasn't there a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
I think what's going on. I learned to fly. Let's see, I got my certificate in March of 2019 is when I got my private pilot certificate. And I think I got it around 75 hours. So I think, and I have 650 now.
Wow.
I do a lot of flying. So it's just weird to have that all work itself out. And then to kind of almost, it feels like I fast forwarded, you know, to this point where I go, whoa, okay, I'm here and I know how to fly a lot of things. And it's really weird.
Is there a moment of instruction, or say any time that you've been flying really, that stands out as you think of, oh, I can't believe I did that, or I can't believe that happened?
Ooh, there's so many. Let's see. More specifically, if you could narrow that down more specifically, because there's a lot of those.
Okay, famous or famous, your favorite moment as an instructor.
As an instructor, okay. I've had a lot of revelations. I've had a lot of my own aha moments. I think it was realizing that now I am this figure that I used to look up to other people. Because when I was, you know, a student pilot, I would look at my instructor and I would be like, oh my God, like you have all this, I want to be like you. I want to be at that point when I can, you know, move the plane like this, when I can manipulate the plane like this, when I can do these maneuvers like you can. And I just wanted to be that. And now I am that. And I realized that when I would especially work with younger students, you know, and they do, I feel like there's no one that gives you a better ego boost than students do. If you ever need an ego boost, become a flight instructor and have good students that you get along with, because they'll go, like yesterday I did this turn or something. I did something on the taxiway, which was just kind of normal, but my student, he just goes, oh, my instructor's a this? And I was like, I didn't do anything. I just taxi. but it's things like that where you realize that, I think it's like not one moment, but like accumulation of all these moments where you realize that you're growing, and especially that I'm always gonna need a teacher. I'm never gonna stop learning. I'm always gonna want a teacher, and I'm always gonna need a teacher. But realizing that I am the teacher and I am the person that I looked up to, that little Hannah, 2 years ago would have looked up to, I think is really interesting.
I think you've put that really nicely, and especially where you're saying you need a teacher always learning. I think aviation is a sport where you can't complete it. And I always say that the day I feel there's nothing for me left for me to learn is the day I stop, because I'm going to do something stupid and I'm going to hurt myself, I'm going to hurt someone else. And I think that's definitely a moment where you're always learning, you're always expanding. Every day is a school day.
You're always learning. I'm always taking mental notes and physical notes of what's going on during my flights with my students. I learn so much from them. And I think that the best way to describe it, that I try to describe it to people that aren't instructors, and I don't know if anyone else at the CFI agrees with me, but that I know how to make the plane fly and not fly. And I think it's crazy, because as a student, you get taught how to make the plane fly. However, I know how to make it not fly. And that's how I'm safe about it, is because I know how to make the plane not fly. And I never thought about that, because you're always being taught how to fly. How do you make the plane fly? Lift. How do you create lift? But I know how to not create lift in a lot of different ways. I am shown by my students how to not create lift, or how to misguide lift, how lift is improperly used, how all these forces are misused as students. And I know how to correct that. And that has been the most fascinating thing, is learning how the plane doesn't fly. If that makes any sense. Kind of deep, but
Yeah, of course. And do you find that the aerobatics has really helped with that as well, by getting put into unusual attitudes?
absolutely. Yeah. The comfort with it. Understanding the limitations of these categories of the planes, whether it be normal, utility, aerobatic, knowing what that pull feels like, knowing that I've done a +4 pull, I've done a +6 pull, and understanding just what that takes to overstress the airframe and what you can really put the plane through, understanding why it matters, why airspeed versus loading matters, and understanding maneuvers that will put you in that, what will stress the airplane out, how far can you take a student. It's really helped a lot.
It's brilliant to see, especially like because you get instructors who, like you said, they're probably in the same category of don't want to be there and stuff, but they don't know where the balance is as well, of, like you were saying, how to take students, or how far to take students. So it's great to see that you've got that experience from, like you were saying, from the aerobatics, that you can take into that, show them what the airplane can and can't do, and still gauge the connection between you and the student there. Which is quite
Absolutely.
good. I do laugh when you're saying like about the ego boost for students. I took off with a mate of mine, my mate Rob, and as we went past the clubhouse, we're in a climate away. I just gave the wings a waggle. This is mate's fear, right? Just gave the wings a waggle, and instead of being declared a badass, I was declared a show off.
Oh, weird. Weird. That's not I'd say that's just friendly,
Oh
little
yeah,
like,
100%. He wanted to make sure my ego wasn't too big.
I feel like that's not like it. There's people that need ego checks, and I don't think that's one of them. Like, I think that's just like I do that all the time. I'll wave at people with the wing. I think it's just like a little friendly, hi.
It's good fun, I have to say. I do it. I wouldn't say I do it quite a bit, but yeah, it's good fun just doing it every so often, just to say hello.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I think keep doing it. Honestly, that's
I'll let Rob know. I'll tell him he's wrong.
wrong. Yeah, Rob's wrong.
And Hannah, for any kind of young person trying to get into this sport, or even young women trying to get into this sport, what advice would you give them? Because it seems it doesn't seem, it is quite male dominated.
So just in aviation in general.
Aviation in general.
I think you have to have a really thick skin, first of all, if you are a younger woman, because you will be harassed quite a bit. I'm not saying that will happen, that's a guarantee, but if you ask a lot of young women, it will happen. It's kind of most likely that it will. And so having a thick skin really helps, and kind of knowing how to handle those situations. But with all of it in general, I don't think that being a woman is really an obstacle to entering aviation. In fact, I think that, and I've got like a kind of a weird controversial opinion on all the women in aviation groups. I know that it has helped a lot of women to join them, but for me, I think it actually further separates us because I want to be integrated. I want to come in and like I was the president of my local EAA chapter, Experimental Aircraft Association. It's actually the ones that got the Oshkosh mug, so
Brilliant.
EAA. But I was the president and I was the only woman and I was the only person under the age of 45. And so I was leading a bunch of people. And I think that going into it like that and showing that, you know, you can just fit in with the guys, and that even though it's very male dominated and there's people in that group that they didn't like me, but I don't care, you know, because there's way more people that do like me. You know, and if you don't like me because I'm a girl that flies, that's definitely not my problem. You know, that's firmly not my problem. But just knowing that, like for me, I just want to be integrated in. You know, I don't want to be called a female pilot. I just want to be a pilot. And I don't want to feel like
and all that, doesn't it? It's
yeah. I don't want to feel like I'm standing out. I just want to fit in, you know, and I think the best way to do that is integration, like, you know, taking a leadership position in a local chapter that is male dominated and kind of working your way in with the rest of the community and just kind of hanging out. And that is hard to do. And that's why I'm glad that those groups do exist. So I think that to an extent they do help a lot of women, but it's hard, you know. I've seen both perspectives. I've seen girls that have had a lot of difficult, you know, situations in different groups. I don't know, like it's hard, but I think that at the end of the day, my advice, because I just ranted for a long time, but I just rambled. I think my advice at the end of the day would be that there is no difference with, you know, you and a man. Like there's nothing, there's no reason why women can't do it. You know, there's literally no barrier, you know, to becoming a pilot if you're a woman.
That's what I like, and I think there's a lot of pilots who I know that are women and can fly much better than some of the male pilots I know. So it like you said, there's no barrier, and definitely to go for it. But Hannah, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on today.
Yeah, thank you so much for reaching out. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem, and thank you for coming on. And hopefully next time, if we talk to you again, you'll be teaching aerobatics and possibly flying warbirds.
I hope so. That's the goal. We'll see where it goes.
Hannah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.